Hello and welcome to Give and Take, the Virtues in Life. And today's topic is Raj Yoga Meditation. So this is going to be part one of a few of the Raj Yoga Meditation because there is so much knowledge to be shared by our wonderful guest. And so she is going to introduce herself. So welcome.
Thank you. Well, my name is Gayatri Naraine, and people call me Gayatri. And I have been practicing Raj Yoga meditation for the past 40 years. So I would call myself a meditation practitioner according to Raj Yoga.
Okay.
And I am also a teacher of Raj Yoga meditation. And I love to serve the community by introducing them into this beautiful practice of meditation according to the principles of Raj Yoga.
Okay, lovely. And I thought this would be good because I've mentioned on probably almost every one of my shows that I practice Raj Yoga meditation. So this will give them a more deeper insight into what it's all about. And so you'll be sharing over a series in regards to what Raj Yoga meditation is all about, because there's very many deep aspects to it. And so we thought it'd be good to do a series so that we can share all about Raj Yoga.
Yes, I'd love to, co-partner with you on this because I think it's so much needed at this time.
Absolutely.
Yes, it would be a pleasure.
Great. So, where I guess when I took the course, and I've been practicing now for the past 5 years, and the first thing we talked about was the soul, and that's a very important part in regards to understanding who we truly are in this world. So I think at this time we will see the picture, and that shows the soul in regards to the aspects of the soul. And so there it is, it's the mind, intellect, and impressions. So if you just want to talk a little bit about that, because we're going to focus on the soul for this first episode.
Sure. Well, what is the soul? I think it would be the first question that someone would have.
Right.
And the soul for us is actually a very spiritual word. When one says soul, two things would come to mind. One would be, oh, is it a religion? And the other would be, oh, is it something spiritual? Because the word soul is mentioned in a number of different religious traditions. But when I use the word soul, I'm actually referring more to the spirit, to the soul, more within the spiritual realm of the being. And so the soul is actually that living force in the body. It's like the being and the human. Right. So the human would be the physical makeup, and the soul would be the spirit or the being.
Okay.
And so the human being, we are made up of these two energy fields. Matter, so from dust to dust, would be for the body, and the soul is something that we talk about being immortal, being eternal, being something that cannot be destroyed, which is imperishable. And so that is the aspect that I feel has been neglected in the way we live our lives from a very long time ago. We just focused on the material aspects of our makeup, our persona, and very less on understanding myself to be that being or that spiritual light, which is the soul.
And it's really, once I got the knowledge, it really made sense to me, because nothing really else made sense to me. So it was just, oh my goodness, finally something that makes sense. And when it's explained like that, like the soul is part of the body. So the body is not who we truly are. It's the soul is the actual driver of the body, like a car, right?
That's right. It's the one that directs the body how to be and what to do. And so, for instance, we're so caught up in the doing that we feel we're human doings. And so the senses and the sense organs and the body is what makes the difference, because it is doing and doing and doing.
Right.
But then when we go to sleep at night, we go into the state of being, because we're still alive, but we're not doing anything.
Right.
And so we are in a state of being. And then unconsciously, or even subconsciously, what is happening is that I'm living in my world of thoughts and feelings when I'm sleeping. So then I would dream. And depending on how much I have done throughout the day or days before that, that is how active I will remain even when the body is resting. And because the being is still very much there, and the being is what is doing the thinking. It's not the brain, because at that time the brain is resting. And so the being is what's doing the thinking, and the being is still very active. So I think to understand myself within the dynamic of these two energy fields that I am, I have to do it in a very practical way.
Right.
And so the question perhaps would be, when I'm in the doing mode, who is doing?
Who's doing? I like that.
Is it that my organs are doing, or is it that I, the soul, am directing my organs to do?
Right.
And so, for instance, we would say, well, my lungs breathe. It's an automatic thing. The body is doing that.
Right.
What does the soul have to do with it? Well, if the soul isn't there, the lungs would not be able to do what it is made to do.
Exactly.
It won't be able to function in a way that it is meant to do. So the soul, then, to understand myself as a soul, is to actually allow my body and my bodily organs to be regulated and to function in a way that is cohesive with the energy I am pumping into the body, or the energy I'm generating into the body.
And so I like when you said about when we're sleeping, that the being is still being. I love that. And because it's still there, but the body needs rest. But the being is still there, active through dreams or whatever it may be. And in regards to what you're saying about the being the one that is generating the energy in the body, is because I actually had that experience when my dad left the body, when the soul left the body. He was no longer breathing. So the soul was gone, but the body still lay there, but he was gone. The person who I knew to be my dad, who went on somewhere else now, was gone. So I actually got to see that firsthand.
Really?
And it helped me not take any sorrow from it. I mean, there's more aspects as to why I didn't take sorrow, but I understood that the soul is eternal and immortal, so there's nothing to be sorrowful about.
There's nothing to be sorrowful about, but what I think, when that soul leaves the body, and even though the body is still there, and the body may be the one I associated my relationship with, as this is the body of my father. This is the person who gave birth to me. I share his DNA. I share what is physical about him. He contributed to who I am in the sense of my body. So the relationship factor is very much one of body to body in that respect. However, once we get over that, we then begin to see that my father is a personality. My father is a character. My father is a being. My father has given me more than just my body. I share more than those cells that made up my body with him. I share something that is deeper with him. And that's where I think the relationship factor, when that is realized, that even though the body is lying here and the body is no longer breathing, is no longer functioning, something has left that I am going to miss. Now, at that time, we know the body's going to be buried, or we know the body's going to be cremated. But the missing factor that we feel in that moment of losing someone that we really value in our lives is that it's the being I am going to miss the most. And so that being that I'm going to miss, I then have to make meaning out of it. I have to make sense out of it.
Right.
Otherwise, I'd live my life in a deep sense of sorrow. Missing, I think, is fine. But when that missing takes me to a place of deep sorrow,
Right.
I think that is where, you know, the illness, then that losing becomes depression, or it becomes a state of some kind of emotional or mental, you know, impact that leaves an illness with me. So to understand that the soul is immortal, and actually the memories that we share in the relationship will continue, because the soul doesn't die.
No.
The soul, for some of us, as I do, would go and take a rebirth. And so the relationship would come around again in my life, but in a different dress, as it were, in a different costume, in a different body.
Right.
And so these relationships never actually come to an end, because we keep dancing. They keep circling around, and we keep dancing together, but in different times and in different costumes, as I would say, different bodies.
Right, exactly. So I love the way you put it, and so it's and we will explore that in other sessions of this, because it's really deep, but it really gave me a sense of freedom, because I was always afraid of dying, and this finality. And I used to say, why does everyone get to stay and I leave? Somehow it just seemed very foreign to me. But once I got the knowledge, it made me understand that, yeah, it was foreign, because that doesn't exist as you know it to exist. And so there's more to it, is what the knowledge gave me.
That's right. Yeah. And so, you know, coming back to the point of Raj Yoga, is really the very first lesson of Raj Yoga is to take us into the deeper understanding of this being, of this soul, and to understand immortality not as a spiritual concept that is vague and abstract.
Right.
But immortality is something that is lived within mortality. So from the moment I take birth as a baby, I know my body will age.
Right.
And I know it is leading me ultimately to mortality. But then understanding myself as this being is to understand that within the physical realm of life, within the mortality of the body, if I can connect to this other dimension of life, there is unlimited possibility there. There's unlimited, as we would say, potential there. But if I live in the mortality of the body, or the fear of death, that's the mortality of the body, you know, the fear that occurs. What if?
Right.
And so if I then transcend that and look at potential within the being, which is the soul, which is the spiritual potential, then I will understand immortality to mean, when I hear that I'm using 1% of my potential,
Right.
that is because I'm living in the domain of mortality.
Right.
If I can now use 99% of my potential, the unlimited possibility of the soul will open.
Yes.
And that will bring me to my immortality.
Exactly.
And that will bring me to, well, what it is that I was called on through this body to give to my world.
Lovely. How
You know,
lovely, yes.
What is it I can give to my relationships when the relationships are suddenly limited by all the conditions that we put on our interactions with others and in our interrelationship with others?
Right.
Can I transcend that? And can I look at the unlimited possibility of bringing something new, bringing something deeper, bringing something higher to my relationship? And that means I'm tapping into my immortality. Now, some people call that immortality factor in the soul as your authentic self,
Your authentic
as
self.
your true self.
Right.
But once you touch that, you're touching a potential that really soars to the heights of your being. And that is what Raj Yoga is all about. How do I tap into that part of myself that allows me to see a landscape so wide,
right.
so huge, that it provides me with almost anything is possible in life.
Almost anything, and that's what it's provided for me. Now it's unlimited, it's not limited anymore. And so what does the word Raj Yoga mean? What does that mean?
Well, Raja means sovereign, it means king, it means royal, it means master.
Right.
And yoga is basically a union or a connection.
Right.
So I am connecting yoga to that which is highest within me, that which is royal within me,
Right.
that which makes me a sovereign, takes me out of the seeking mode of life into the slavery mentality of life, into the victim mode of life, and then connects me to being a sovereign.
Right.
You know, a sovereign means an independent, a free state of being. But then it also makes me into a master.
Master of the self, right?
But not master of the self, not master of others, but master of the self,
Right.
master of my mind, master of my decisions, master of my character.
Right.
So these are the three levels that I would look at myself at. And so Raj Yoga is allowing me to connect to my mind. It's allowing me to connect to a higher level of the mind, which is usually called my ability to understand, my ability to make a decision, to choose, my ability to make meaning, and that is called the intellect. And then the third is connecting me to my true purpose,
Right.
which is what lies behind the duality in my characteristics. Where is that unity of purpose that is sometimes called the inner truth, the inner voice of truth? Am I connecting to that true purpose? And so that is what Raj Yoga does at the level of me as a practitioner. But then Raj Yoga has another meaning in which once I connect to myself, then in order to get the energy, that source energy to help me in the process of the transformation, the inner changes that would be required of me, then I need to connect to that highest being.
Right.
And the highest being, of course, is a source, is a divine, is however you see that.
Exactly. And so there are many different ways in regards to people relate to the source, God,
Yes.
whatever they believe that higher being beyond them is. And it's all good, it's all right, it's all accurate. That was the other thing I liked about Raj Yoga meditation, like it's all accurate. So there's nothing to feel, you know, slighted about, or this one's wrong, or that one's right. Doesn't matter. So it really lightens the burden of all the things that happens in this world. So I want you, so the other thing is when people talk about the soul, spirit, they'll say they'll touch here or wherever. Where does this wonderful energy of light sit in the body?
Yeah, you know, I was at a meeting once, actually I was in conversation with someone, and he said, if you were to ask anyone, where are you in your body? You know, they would all go. They would touch their heart.
Right.
And then I thought about it, and then I responded, if you were to ask a spiritual practitioner, if you were to ask someone of spirit, where are you in the body? Invariably, they would go here.
Right.
And the reason for that is because, you know, once you start understanding the energy and its connection to your body, the energy of the soul and its connection to the energy of the body, then you begin to know that there are certain points within the body that the energy connections are happening.
Okay.
And of course, they call them the chakras. And so, of course, it's the heart chakra. And so that's where we feel ourselves.
Right.
You know, our thinking selves are here,
The emotions,
but our
right?
feeling selves, we will touch the heart. And so when you hear about something like the soul, you know it's in your heart. Which, and both are right, you know, to say, I'm sitting here, or I'm sitting here. But we were told when it comes to understanding really the soul in its own right, what you're doing is that you're centering your energies. So you're centering the energy starting from the tip of the toes, and you're working that energy up through your whole body. You're working it into your heart and through your heart, and you're working it up into the center of the forehead.
Okay.
And that's when we say center yourself and consider that you are this being of light. You are the life force in the body. Center it here. This is also the place where the third eye gets opened.
Right.
Because another word for the soul is the third eye. So when it comes to the opening of the third eye will open closest to where your physical eyes would be.
Right.
Because the third eye is now allowing you to see from the inside out. These eyes allow you to see from the outside in.
Right.
And so the soul then sits here, between the two eyebrows, as it were, and the soul, when it centers itself, feels the energy concentrated in the spot of the body. So this is where we call the seat of the soul,
The seat of the
or
soul.
the throne of the immortal image, which is the soul.
Excellent, beautiful. So now there are faculties of that soul. So do we want to touch a little bit on that in regards to the faculties of the soul?
Yes, I did mention it a little bit in terms of connecting.
Right.
And so the faculties of the soul are the three abilities that I use in my everyday life. So my first ability as a soul is to think. When I think, I create thoughts.
Right.
And the creation of the thoughts is called the mind. Now, the mind is not separate from the soul.
Right.
The mind is an ability of the soul. The brain does not think according to our understanding. It is the soul that thinks with its mind, and then the brain interprets the thought waves, right, and sends the thought waves to the rest of the body. The brain waves are coming from the way I'm thinking. The second ability I have is my ability to understand my thoughts. So they say the mind is like a wild horse, full of energy, but no sense. So I could be thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and getting a headache and feeling just so totally overwhelmed with my own thinking. It can sometimes send me crazy
And make you
with
very
my
tired,
thoughts. And of course, it zaps a lot of the physical energy and the mental energy. So there is another ability which is called the intellect. Now, the intellect is my ability to process the thoughts of the mind. So the intellect is my ability to understand. So when I have a thought, before I decide to act on that thought, the intellect will have a discussion.
Right.
Is this right? Is this wrong? Is this something I should do? Is this something I shouldn't do? So the intellect is working to understand those thoughts.
Right.
The intellect is also my ability to remember. So when thoughts come, one, they're being stimulated from the outside.
Right.
But then the intellect is accessing memories associated with those thoughts. And then saying, well, you remember this and this happened when you did it this and this way, or you remembered your doctor said you shouldn't go to the refrigerator and eat all of that butter and cheese because your cholesterol is high. So it's accessing the memories that is reminding us or giving us the logic why not to act on that thought.
Right.
Okay, and then the other ability is my personality, my, as I call it, the impressions, as the image that you saw, or you would see. It's got the impressions. So impressions are the patterns within me that get formed as part of my characteristics based on actions I have done. So this is why they say an action once done cannot be recalled because it has set itself as a pattern in your characteristic. Now it can be healed,
Right.
and it can be transformed, those patterns, but you really cannot recall that action, because the action, once is done, leaves an imprint
Okay.
on the soul.
Great. So what we're going to do now, we're going to end with a 2-minute meditation, and we will have another part to this, so we will talk some more. So at this time, we will get ourselves ready and prepared for a lovely meditation, and we'll see that beautiful image.
Okay. So let's sit comfortably wherever you are and relax your body. And center yourself. Concentrate your energy from the tip of your toes. Let that energy move through the body. And as it moves, you're feeling your body relax. It's removing the tensions in the muscles, in the tissues of the body. Let that energy move itself all the way up until you feel it circling around in the center of the forehead. Now center yourself. As if you're seated on the seat of the soul. Now become aware of who you are, and hold this awareness, seeing yourself as a being of light. I am light. I am living. There is a silence within, a quietness. And through the silence of my quiet mind, I can think beautiful thoughts. I can connect the thought to my true self.